Countrywide Connect with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perriam-Lamp.
Joining us to close out the show is Susan Kilsby, who is an agricultural economist. Andy Thompson just said to me, Susan, what is an agricultural economist? Like it needed explaining. But I understand you didn't even really like economics at school. You're an economist.
That's right. Yeah, no, accounting was my favourite, and maths were my favourite subjects at school. Not economics. Maybe the teacher was a bit boring, but it is an amazing subject, though.
Okay, so agricultural economist. We understand what an economist is. Is it just an economist? You're an economist who specialises in agriculture, or is there more to it than that?
No, that's it in a nutshell. Right, absolutely. Okay. So, everything we do in agriculture depends on what's happening in the global economy. So we're keeping an eye on what's happening and interpreting what that means for our farmers.
For those who've tuned in on demand and was expecting some highly academic conversation here, thank you very much for explaining that, Susan. When you were actually on the panel this morning with regards to Simon Tucker, Nathan Guy, who we spoke to earlier in the show, it was around the global context. What was your advice and learnings to the audience of rural professionals?
Yeah, so at the moment we're seeing really strong prices back at the farm gate level here in New Zealand. But part of that is because of the fact that the New Zealand dollar is so low. So that's actually really boosting our prices. So global markets are going pretty average is probably the best way to put it. So the high prices that we're seeing at the moment is not due to real strong consumer demand. It's really more from the fact that the supply side is quite tight, and for a number of our commodities, and also we've got this weak New Zealand dollar, which is boosting returns.
I'm really pleased you said that, because I've been watching this for quite some time, and I have been really interested in the lack of comment from people, from businesses, from, say, Fonterra, some of the big agribusiness, about the influence of the dollar on our pricing. It's almost like it's gone under the radar. Is it so obvious that it's not being mentioned, or what? Because I don't know. Am I wrong? Have I missed it? But I've heard very little comment about the impact of the dollar on these prices.
Yeah, so the way the dollar works when it's low in New Zealand, it helps our export prices, but it also does hinder our input prices, and it does hinder a lot of costs we face. But as farmers, and particularly lower input farmers, the net gain is quite considerable. So for an example, in the sheep and beef sector, I think the last lambs I sold averaged around $250 a head. $50 of that could really be put down to the low New Zealand dollar. So 20% of the return is solely because the New Zealand dollar is low.
In the old days, and I'm thinking back in the 90s and the 2000s, when you were talking about a milk payout price, they used to use a rule of thumb of 1 cent movement in the US dollar is 10 cents in payout. Does that still hold?
Yeah, roughly. I think it might have changed a little bit. I haven't done the numbers recently. I think it was about 12.5 cents a while back, but certainly an absolutely significant impact on the payout here. I mean, one thing that is interesting is the low New Zealand dollar sort of mitigates what's happening in the global markets. So there's a lot of risk and uncertainty out there in the global markets at the moment, which means, consumers aren't spending as much, businesses aren't investing as much, which is reducing demand. But it also means our New Zealand dollar is low because we're considered a risk currency, so people don't buy New Zealand dollars in risky times. So that's buffering the impact that we're having here on the farm gate, and is actually a sort of a net gain to us at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. You've always got to be careful of a low New Zealand dollar. It speaks volumes around wider things.
It's like a scorecard for our economy.
Yeah,
right?
and
is that right?
And it's
I mean,
not
that's
so
the way I look
good.
at it. It's like our scorecard.
And it's interesting because we're obviously going into a general election in a couple of months' time. It's a very fortuitous number around our high record export values. But if you took the New Zealand dollar out of it, would it be less than the previous couple of years?
So the returns are still strong, but it certainly, takes a chunk off it. So like in that lamb example, it was 20% that sort of it came off because of the low New Zealand dollar. And then also inflation, like in that lamb example, you take another $60 off for inflation over the last decade or so. So suddenly, while prices in the markets are still good, they're not exceptional. And I think that's what we've got to remember at the moment on farms, is that we're getting good returns. We need to invest this wisely for the future. We've got a few choices at the moment, wisely for the future, because prices won't remain at this level forever. And there's some really interesting things to invest in. Simply reducing debt is a good option for a lot of people, because we do have highly indebted farms, and then doing things that's actually going to set us up well for the future is important as well.
Because you're an agricultural economist, you must love graphs. Have you ever done a graph where you've overlaid profitability, productivity, and the fluctuations of commodity prices based on just standard global inflation and currency volatility, to actually see if we are genuinely going forward, moving backwards, or staying still?
Yeah, I mean, we are definitely moving forward, and productivity gains on farm have been massive over the years. But when you simply look at the prices, a lot of that does get eroded back when you when you adjust it for inflation. We're not growing as quickly those returns. Most of it's been doing, the reason we're doing better is because we're producing more with less, essentially. And that question's going forward around productivity. It's going to be around, sustainable inputs, and producing, the maximum amount of product that makes sense with that output. And when we're thinking of things like climate change, the more productive we are, the quicker we can grow our animals, the less our emissions are. So there's some real, gains to carrying on doing what we're doing. We've also got consumers starting to become a lot more interested in some of the factors of what we do on farm, around how we look after our animals and our people on farm and the environment. And it's, so a lot of the things that to help going forward is actually going to be able to prove what we already do will actually get us better returns, or at least get us into
Susan,
market.
Thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate it. Love talking economics. It was my favourite subject at school.
Was my favourite subject.
Unfortunately, it wasn't yours, but yours was accounting. Right?
That's
anyway,
right.
I think the two jobs go together, quite frankly.
Absolutely.
Mine was definitely not accounting.
Countrywide Connect with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perriam-Lapp.